Right now, though, let's speak to John McTernan, because we were talking just before with James about the shadow cabinet that has been appointed. There have been some interesting reactions to some of the people who have been named in it. John, a very good morning to you. Welcome.
Well, morning.
A few eyebrows raised, I suppose, because it's a kind of it's a sort of catch-all shadow cabinet we've got here. We've got Charlie Faulkner being brought back from the days of the Blairites. You've got Ed Miliband, who you'd have to call a centrist of any kind in the Labour Party. You've also got David Lammy, Angela Rayner, and Rebecca Long-Bailey. So it's quite eclectic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's. I mean, Keir's always said that what he was going to do was unite the party, and he has. He's got rid of the deadwood. He's giving a chance to people like Rebecca Long-Bailey. He's bringing back some kind of wise and experienced hands like Charlie Faulkner. And I think in the year in which climate change at COP26 was going to be a massive issue, and it was smart to bring back Ed Miliband. Now, the Glasgow meeting on climate change has been postponed until next year.
Yeah.
But that was always going to be one of the Prime Minister's main ambitions for the first part of his premiership. Boris wants to make Glasgow a turning point in the global battle against climate change. Ed's got the experience. Ed was at Copenhagen. Ed knows why that meeting failed. And you can imagine that actually a combination of Alok Sharma and Ed Miliband working for Britain to define a green agenda and a growth agenda that's green, that's taken on by globally, would actually be quite a good thing. So you've got some really interesting potential there, given the overall framing that Keir has, which is it's going to be constructive criticism and not making party political points.
Yeah.
Really,
the problem for Ed Miliband, of course,
the
problem for Ed Miliband in the green agenda, though, is that he was also the environment minister during Gordon Brown's prime ministership. When was he not? When they all decided we should all be driving around in diesel cars, which turned out to be completely wrong.
No, the decision on diesel was made earlier than Ed, and the diesel decision was actually the right one for greenhouse gases. And everybody who made the decision knew that actually the decision on diesel was right for the immediate challenge around greenhouse gases, but it had a long-term issue which is now being addressed. So,
well, you tell that to Jaguar. You're going to tell that to Jaguar Land Rover, John.
Well, everybody knew. Everybody knew. Like, it's not a secret. So that diesel was going to have to be dealt with at some point, but the greenhouse gases were the urgent.
But doesn't that tell you, though, that people in government who start giving advice about the environment and then admit later that it was only good for a certain period of time, why should we listen to them now?
For exactly the reason you said, which is that that you should take advice that's right at the time.
Well, which then turns out to be disastrously wrong.
No, not disastrously wrong. It was right for the time, and it dealt with the most pressing issue, which is greenhouse gas. And the issue of diesel can be addressed in due course, and it's being addressed. And obviously, we're now in the transition to removing diesel and petrol cars completely from our streets, which will be done in the UK because of Michael Gove's policy decision by the decade between 2030 and 2040. So, we're really...
So whatever we do now might be completely wrong in 10 years, is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that what we do now is not the end point. Decarbonising our economy is going to be a process which leads to an end point of a cleaner world and a much more energy efficient world, and one actually in which the costs of production for manufacturing and for service industries is lower, and actually one in which, therefore, if we take that huge cost off businesses, they can become much more profitable.
Yes. Well, I mean, there might not be any businesses left by the end of this year, so we'll see how that goes.
Well, I think that's, the priority for the government. I mean, everybody's agenda is taking a big hit with coronavirus, but I think the levelling up agenda is totally off the table now, and that the priority for the rest of this year and for next year is going to be getting the economy up onto its feet again. And so it will be trying to prevent the whole economy being levelled down to London rather than trying to spread our prosperities to the rest of the country. It's going to be a huge challenge for a lot of the aspirations that Keir Starmer and Miliband have, or that Michael Gove and Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson have. this is a very challenging time. And I think, going back to this question of the shadow cabinet, is it the best shadow cabinet that Keir could have? No, there's a lot of talent on the backbenches, like Liz Kendall, Yvette Cooper, Peter Kyle, Pat McFadden. Is it the cabinet he's going to go into the next election with? No, it isn't. Are they fit for the task? I think, Rachel Reeves is a very good match for Michael Gove, actually. I think Jonathan Ashworth has shown that he's the right kind of person to be the Health Secretary at the moment.
Yeah, well, he's the one guy that survived. It wouldn't have made much sense, to be fair, to get rid of the guy who's been on the case since it's been starting. The one I would suggest to you is slightly bizarre, is David Lammy at Justice. I mean, this is a bloke who called people who voted for Brexit Nazis.
David Lammy at Justice is actually a good idea, given that he showed over Windrush both a passion and an eloquence. And I think what we actually need in our justice system is that combination.
I wouldn't suggest that he's eloquent in any way, shape or form. I don't know where you get that from. He's very shrill. He spends most of his time shouting at people, and he considers anyone who criticises him to be a racist.
No, he by and large calls racist, which I think is a fair call to be.
Yeah, he calls everyone racist. He called Brexit voters racists. He called them Nazis.
David Lammy is a very, very strong appointment to give a sense of a very different front bench, and one, I think, which will have different position. And he will, together with the Shadow Home Secretary, continue to pursue the issue around not just the way the justice system operates, but the way in which the Windrush scandal has not been dealt with. There's been no compensation paid out to the people whose lives were ruined by the Home Office. I think it actually brings a freshness to.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll make a bet with you that if he does not temper the way that he speaks, he will be the first resignation from the shadow cabinet.
No one ever resigns from a shadow cabinet; they are resigned.
Well, you get my drift.
Yeah, I think I would definitely take that bet. He won't be the first. He won't be the first person to be moved or removed from the shadow cabinet.
Well, it's going to be a fascinating time, I suppose. Yeah. I mean, as far as the whole sort of cooperation thing is concerned, I spoke to Annalise Dodds yesterday. She said that the shadow cabinet are hoping to set up a sort of a COVID-19 committee of their own, basically. And you're also going to have a situation where Keir Starmer wants to be part of something that the government is doing. I'm not sure that they're going to take that on board. Let me just interrupt myself here by saying that Michael Gove is self-isolating as a member of his family, apparently has displayed symptoms of COVID-19. So that's another one from the cabinet itself who's going to be out of the way for a while. Sorry. So I guess what I'm saying is, will Keir Starmer be able to take part in some form of joint programme with the government, or do you think they'll just rebuff him?
Well, the thing about having a leader like Keir Starmer as opposed to a leader like Jeremy Corbyn is you can actually, the civil service can give him briefings and he won't misuse them. They'll give him briefings on Privy Council terms and he will be able to use that information. And I think that's the important thing. Ideally, you might look to Australia to see what the Australians have done, where there's a national cabinet being formed by the Liberal, the Conservative leader there, Scott Morrison, where he brings in the heads of all the states, the premiers of all the states, into meetings with him centrally. And I think actually some kind of, not a government of national unity, but some kind of national cabinet would be an interesting idea in Britain. I'd bring Sadiq Khan in, I'd bring Nicola Sturgeon in, I'd potentially bring Keir Starmer in, not to override the decisions of the NHS or the Chief Medical Officer, but actually some of the things we are going to be doing, particularly the exit strategy, is going to be complicated. It'll have some risks, it'll have some costs, and it will have, in the end, the challenge we have is that we have to make political decisions on balancing risks and costs. You can't simply listen to the scientists. You can't simply listen to the economists. Because, you listen to scientists, will crash the economy. You listen to economists, business leaders, and you might actually crash society.
Yes, but you shouldn't also listen. You shouldn't also listen, should you, to members of a party who lost an election massively and who the public have no faith in?
The question is whether you believe in a democracy. Democracy does not say that whoever wins the election gets to make.
I'm afraid it does, John.
No,
it does.
No, wait a
Sorry,
minute.
well, when Tony Blair, excuse me, when you were in Downing Street with Tony Blair, hang on.
You're completely wrong.
No, well, let me put this question to you then, right? John, let me put this question to you. When you were in Downing Street with Tony Blair, when did you give the Conservatives the ability to join in your decision-making?
The Conservative leadership were given Privy Council briefings on many issues of national security.
Well, that's part of the Constitution. That doesn't mean they made the decisions. They were told what was happening. They weren't asked to contribute.
I'm making a very simple point to you, which you seem to resist, which is that winning an election doesn't mean that the opposition parties have to shut their mouths for 5 years.
I'm not saying that.
Actually, well, you did.
No, I'm saying they don't take part in the decision-making process.
I wasn't saying that. I was saying some of these decisions that we're going to make are going to require a broader consensus than what can simply be achieved within the Conservative Party.
I don't agree with that.
They're massive issues.
Well, let me ask you again, and we're running out of time, so you'll have to answer me yes or no. Did you ever invite the Conservative Party into any decision-making process in the Tony Blair government? I'll take no for an answer.
It's not an answer. We didn't have COVID-19.
So no then, right?
We didn't have COVID-19.
Just say it. No.
No, I'm saying to you, in this extraordinary situation, it seems perverse for you to say that all of the political wisdom on decisions about the economy, on coming out of the lockdown, that the entire wisdom of that is locked in the cabinet, which is currently falling like dominoes into self-isolation, as you pointed out.
Yeah, well, I don't see why, if anybody knows anything from the Labour Party, that they've got anything to add. I mean, since you say it's a completely unprecedented event, there's nobody that can bring any experience. I certainly don't want David Lammy in there, and I don't want anybody else who's never been in government in there either. And that's pretty much most of them.
Yeah, but you can have Keir Starmer present in meetings, and you could have Nicola Sturgeon from the SNP because she's in government. Sadiq Khan is in government.
Sadiq Khan is a local mayor. Why would he be in national government?
He's not a local mayor. He's the leader.
He is.
He's the leader of the greatest city in the world.
He's a local mayor.
That makes it. It's not. The mayor of London is never going to be a local mayor. The mayor of London was the leading politician.
Well, I think he should get busy sorting out transport for London before he starts messing around with what the government's doing nationally. John, listen, I'm going to let you go. We're out of time. John McTernan, former political secretary for Tony Blair. He seems a bit confused this morning. Normally, he's very sensible. This is Talk Radio.